students, good morning. Today we are going to discuss about the next chapter, the industrialization in the colonies. As part of that, first of all, we are going to discuss about the age of Indian textiles. During this time, the Indian silk and cotton dominated the international market. India had a vibrant sea trade throughout the Surat and Hooghly. Indian merchants and bankers involved in export trade network. European companies broke this network by securing concessions and monopoly rights to trade. Old ports of Surat and Hooghly were declined, and credit dried up and bankers became the bankrupt. The Bombay and Calcutta ports were also flourished during this time. Then we have to check what happens to the weavers. The East India Company faced competition from French, Dutch, and Portuguese. East India Company developed a system of management and control to eliminate competition, control prices, and to ensure regular supplies. The appointment of gumastas to supervise weavers and to collect the supplies and also to examine the quality of product. They adopted the system of loans to the weavers to prevent dealing with other buyers. Clashes between weavers and gumastas were usual. The weavers in Karnataka and Bengal deserted the villages. In the beginning of 19th century marked the decline of Indian textile exports. Imposition of import duties of Indian textile to protect the Manchester goods. Collapse of Indian export and shrink of local market were also another peculiarity. The Indian weavers couldn't compete with the Manchester import goods. American Civil War gave impetus to Indian raw cotton exports. During this time, Indian weavers starved for good quality cotton. The factory production began in India also during this time. The factories come up. While the factories come up, we must have to analyze the situation of early industries and also the early entrepreneurs and where did the workers come from. First of all, we are going to analyze about the early industries. First of all, a cotton mill was set up in Bombay in 1854. By 1862, four mills also again come up. The jute mills also set up in Bengal. Elgin mill started in Kanpur in 1860s. First cotton mill set up in Ahmedabad in 1861. By 1874, the spinning and weaving mill in Madras was also began production. Next, we are going to check about the early entrepreneurs. Many Indians became junior players in overseas trade, provided finance, procured supplies, and shipping consignments. Dwaraknath Tagore, Dhinsho Petit, J.N. Tata, G.D. Birla, Seth Hongam Chand were some early entrepreneurs. Colonial control over Indian trade was also tightened. Establishment of European managing agencies which made investment and business decisions. Indian financiers were only provided capital. Where did the workers come from? Workers come from adjoining districts. Many traveled distant places to find a job. The getting of job was very difficult. The job seekers were more than the jobs available. The appointment of jobbers were to recruit and help to settle the workers. Next chapter is the peculiarities of industrial growth. First of all, we are going to analyze the peculiarities. The first and important peculiarity is the European managing agencies dominated the industrial production in India. Second one is that Indian businessmen avoided competing Manchester goods. Third one is that the series of changes in early 20th century affecting industrialization pattern. Fourth one is that nationalists mobilized people to boycott foreign cloth. Next one is that Indians shifted from yarn to cloth production. And another one is that First World War boomed Indian industrial production. The last one is that Manchester lost dominance after the war. Next, we are going to analyze about the small scale industries. The large scale industries were formed a small segment. Small scale production continued to predominate. The expansion of handloom production with the use of fly shuttle also began. Even though the growth and development were occurred, the weavers and craftsmen led a miserable life. The next chapter is market for goods. As part of the industrialization and when the factories come and the trades developed for the market of goods, the advertisement, calendars, labels, and the figures of personages began to be used. We have seen how British manufacturers attempted to take over the Indian market and how Indian viewers and craftsmen, traders, and industrialists resisted the colonial controls, demanded the tariff protection, created their own spaces, and tried to extend the market for their own produce. But when new products are produced, people have to be persuaded to buy them. They have to feel like using the product. One way in which new consumers are created is through the advertisements. When Manchester industrialists began selling cloth in India, they put labels on the cloth bundle. The label was needed to make the place of manufacture and the name of the company familiar to the buyer. The label was also to be a mark of quality. When buyers saw "Made in Manchester" written in bold on the label, they were expected to feel confident about the buying of cloth. But labels didn't only carry words and text, they also carried the images and were very often beautifully illustrated. The images of Indian gods and goddesses regularly appeared on these labels. By the late 19th century, manufacturers were printing calendars to popularize their products. Like the images of gods, the figures of important personages like the emperors and the nawabs were also adorned the advertisement and calendars. Through this, Indian manufacturers also advertised the nationalist message. Now, our chapter is over. I hope all of you understood the whole chapter, and I am thanking to all of you who patiently watched the whole video. Thank you. Thanks for all.